Hello and welcome to New Imperialism. In this slideshow, I will be providing two perspectives on that controversial time in American history. First, we will be charging America with improper treatment of their insular territories from 1870 to 1914, losing their ideals in the pursuit of new land and markets. Then we will dive deeper to see things from the American government's point of view, looking for economic opportunities for the sake of the American people, while respecting prior landholdings of natives in their territories. As rapper Kendrick Lamar put it, is America honest, or do we bask in sin? But before we can do this, it is important to know the background to this interesting time in American history. In the years following the Civil War, America began to make major gains in the Pacific and Caribbean. Some of their new territories included Puerto Rico, the Philippines, Hawaii, and Cuba. One of the main reasons for this new expansion was the victory over Spain in the Spanish-American War. America also won the Philippine War to retain control over, you guessed it, the Philippines. The United States was largely motivated by economic factors and their search for new markets in their imperialism. Ideology also had a factor. Americans believed it was their right to seize territory in the Americas, claiming they were manifesting their destiny. There are many parallels between American expansion and European, particularly English, imperialism during the 16th to 18th century. For the sake of this study, it is best to divide English treatment of their subjects into their treatment of the natives and their treatment of the colonists. In regards to the Native Americans, the English believed that they were completely superior to them, and that it was their duty to expose them to Western culture and Christianity. The English enslaved natives fought other European powers for their land and exploited the Americans for economic opportunity in the form of raw materials and natural resources. Treatment of the English colonists was much more civil, largely because their subjects were their own people and were white. England set up a mercantilist economy in the colonies that took advantage of the Americans. They also taxed relatively heavily while only offering virtual representation to the colonists. Lastly, the English killed people of their own blood in the American Revolution. Fortunately, the American soldiers' sacrifice was not in vain. We won the war and gained independence. Independence, something that should, as American ideals hold, be offered to all peoples. Now that we have some context, let's take a look at how America became the very thing that it swore to destroy, to quote the great Jedi Obi-Wan. One of the most clear similarities between English and American imperialism is that they both faced great resistance in certain areas. The seizing of the Philippines is a great example of this. The Philippine War, fought under the pretense that holding the Philippines would help us to get closer to China and that the Filipinos wanted to be under our control, was a very bloody war for the Philippines. It is often referred to as America's Forgotten War, likely because we have covered up some of the war atrocities committed against Emiliano Aguinaldo's revolutionaries. American soldiers killed over 100,000 Filipino fighters and civilians. They also established concentration camps for holding possible insurrectos, in which horrible things were done to the prisoners. There are also several reports of American soldiers raping and killing civilians. Although there was a lack of public support at home, the reason so many heinous acts were committed without raising many eyebrows was simply because the Americans viewed the Filipino race as inferior to the white race. The Philadelphia Ledger, a newspaper at the time, released an article in which they described some of the atrocities committed in the war. However, they did not condemn these acts, and concluded that this war is not civilized warfare, but it is okay because we're not dealing with civilized people. This blemish on American history is frankly hard to believe. Another area in which America demonstrated un-American qualities was in its legislative and judicial acts at the time. In dealing with its insular territories, America only granted constitutional rights when it would benefit the U.S. economy. For example, the Foraker Act, championed for granting Puerto Rico relative self-governance, allowed America to levy duties and tariffs on the small island and block trade with other nations. Why does this sound so familiar? Oh right, because this was the exact situation that we were in with Britain in the 1700s. Come on, America, don't be a hypocrite. Another instance in which we were unfair to an island was in the Platt Amendment, in which we did not grant Cuba complete independence, something that they had hoped for after our victory in the Spanish-American War. Throughout the course of our imperialist phase, the Supreme Court made many decisions that seem to be blatantly racist. Keep in mind, this is the same Supreme Court that prompted segregation in Plessy v. Ferguson. One of the most well-known of these insular cases was Downs v. Bidwell. in which the Supreme Court ruled that U.S. territories were not necessarily granted constitutional rights. The court ruling literally said that because the islands were inhabited by alien races, and governing them according to Anglo-Saxon principles would be impossible for a time. According to this logic, because Hawaii had many white settlers and would benefit the U.S. economy if granted statehood, it was made a state. As for the other peoples of the U.S. territories, they would be called non-citizen nationals. After hearing all of this disgusting history about American imperialism, it is hard to present America in a positive light. However, that's exactly what I'm about to do. Objectively speaking, America's imperialistic history is way less dirty than most other European powers. We didn't force colonialism on anyone, and we certainly didn't enslave the peoples of our new land. We were just seeking economic opportunity. However, as well as being motivated by a pursuit of new markets, the American people also felt obligated to free the Cuban natives from the horrible treatment by the Spanish. Yellow journalism circulating through America helped American citizens get behind the cause. We needed to get Spain out of the Americas. This action is certainly not contradictory to American ideals, and is actually completely in line with the Monroe Doctrine. The Spanish-American War was called a splendid little war for its brevity and minimal loss of life. It was less than 4 months long, and fewer than 4,000 Americans died. After winning the war, we were granted the rights to Cuba from Spain in a treaty. However, in the Teller Amendment, we promised that we would not seize land in Cuba. America kept this promise. America granted statehood to Hawaii, giving them the complete rights of citizens. We also later offered statehood to Puerto Rico, but due to conflicting political parties, they have not accepted this offer. We were involved in the building of infrastructure in many of our territories, particularly the Philippines. This opportunity was only able to be granted to them after their loss in the Philippine War. We helped set up public health care, establish a nationalized education system, and build railroads and other modern groundwork. The last point to be made is that America really wasn't acting that out of line with its ideals. Just because we were manifesting our destiny on a larger scale does not make it an evil act according to American principles. Overall, we treated our subjects with respect and afforded them many rights, as well as, of course, acknowledging their fundamental rights, something our European predecessors were not willing to do. We were not racially motivated to seize territories. We were motivated by economic factors. Our racial views were, unfortunately, in line with the times, making it slightly less unacceptable. Also, many of our territories benefited economically from our relationship with them. The most clear example of this would be Hawaii. So, I provided you with all of the information. Now, it is your choice what to believe. Were we wrong for moving forward as a nation? In strengthening our control over surrounding territories, did we fail to preserve American ideals? You decide. Thank you.